Hey, how's everybody doing today? I think I'm pretty well ready to go. I have cut, today we're going to do the Fox and Geese block. This one, it's simple, but there's like 6 parts to it. So um, it might look a little scary, but it's very, very simple. Um, I've got all my pieces cut. When I cut today, there's just two different fabrics used in the block. So I picked out all the fabrics I wanted to use for both block or for we're going to make 3 blocks, so I needed 6 fabrics. So I paired them up and then put the 3 background pieces, what I call background pieces, and then I stacked those. So I cut all 3 at the same time, and then the contrasting fabric, I layered all 3 of those and cut for all those. So it went really, really, really fast. So they're all cut and organized, ready to go. So you're going to have a part 1A, and I honestly and truly think that both halves are all labeled exactly the same. So here's 1A. So we're going to start with fabric piece number 1 with the wrong side facing up. Put the foundation on top of it. When it's like this, you want to be able to read the printing on the foundation. It says stitch with this side facing up, fabric underneath. I try to give you a little extra to read. And instead of pinning, you know me, I'm just going to save myself from having to stitch it later. Make sure I got it right the way I want it. You want 1/4 of an inch of fabric going past the line between space 1 and space 2. And you want to make sure it goes out to the dotted line on the other 2 sides of the triangle. And I need to put my needle back in the middle. I was joining borders yesterday. Whoops, I'm still not in the middle. We'll see when I go to sew on the line. Okay, that's good enough. You can just pin it if you want. Pin it in place. I just didn't, I like to attach the corner and it wouldn't be attached to my foundation otherwise. Okay, so you're going to turn it over so the right side of your fabric is facing up. Going to take fabric piece number 2, put right sides together. You like the edges even. Put a pin back here. Turn it over and we're going to sew on the line. And you can chain piece these. There's 4 parts like this to the whole block. So if you wanted to, you could sew all 4, chain piece them, which I will probably do on the other 2 blocks, but I do want to show you. Get my iron warmed up here. Set those stitches and open that up and press that seam nice and flat. And then we're going to turn it over so the foundation's facing up and put a straight edge along the seam line where we're going to add piece number 3. This is a seam line. So Open that up. You want to remember, you never want to cut your foundation. Use the add a quarter ruler. And trim that extra away. And then we'll scoot over here to the machine and take fabric piece number 3. Put right sides together. And just want to make sure you have it centered. With the broken line. Turn it over and sew in the line. Hi. There we go. Okay, and then get that pin out of there. How's everybody doing today? I've had a crazy morning. Okay, so now I'm going to just run a little teeny bit of a stitching line just down here around the corner. Hold it down. See, otherwise it would just be flopping around. And you don't have to do this. I got in the habit of doing it, and I really like that it's all connected, that the foundation. For those of you who are new, these are easy piecing leave-in foundations. The process is just like traditional paper piecing, but you're going to leave the foundations in your quilt. You won't know they're in there, except you'll be amazed at how square or whatever shape your quilt is, how it holds its shape. Okay, now the last thing to do on this, since this block is covered, is we're going to trim around the 4 edges down to 1/4 inch from the solid line. That solid line is where you're going to sew the different parts of the block together. Or if it's on the outside of the block, it's where you're going to sew your sashing, your border, or your other blocks to it. You're going to use that line. I mean, that's your stitching line. That's where you're going to sew things together. So there's part 1A done. And now we're going to do part B1. I think it's what it's 1B. It's what it's called. And it is the same thing. Turn that with the wrong side facing up. Put your foundation on top with about 1/4 inch going past the line into space 2. You're setting your seam allowance there. Okay, then we're going to turn it over to the right side of the fabric, and we're going to put piece number 2. Usually, since these are both the same size, if you just completely cover the first piece, it'll be set just right. Okay, and stitch on that line. And remember, you use a regular stitch length because you are going to leave this in. I use, on my machine, it says it's just under 3. I would say on an electronic machine, it'd be like 2.8, 3.0, something like that. Whatever you use for regular stitching. That way, if you make a mistake, you can take your stitches out. That's not very good. There, you can see my stitches. Still having little trouble with my tension here. So then after you stitch it, step number one is to stitch it. Step number 2 is set those stitches, then open the piece up and press it nice and flat. And then step number 3 is to trim so that you can go back to step number 1 and sew. But we need to get our 1/4" seam allowance. If I didn't trim this and I just took this piece and you can estimate where you might want to set it, or if you put it like that and you sew it back here on the line, you're going to open it up and whoops, it's not going to cover. So you always want to trim down to a 1/4". And you don't want all that extra fabric in there, in your quilt. It makes it a little bulkier, makes it a little heavier. And all of our sizes that we tell you to cut your pieces are based on you sewing it onto a 1/4" seam. And you know, I watched a video the other day and the lady was doing this and she just folded this back. She was doing paper. And she just took her scissors and she cut. And they were still all wacky. It doesn't really take very long to use your add a 1/4. And just do it, you know. I mean, it's entirely up to you. There's no quilt police. I'm not coming to your house to see if you do it right. These fabrics are from Riley Blake. It was a fat 1/4 bundle, and then from those fabrics I chose the border fabric and the inner border fabric, and of course bought lots of bolts of those. And most of my fabrics come from Riley Blake, Moda. I use a lot of grunge, Shadow Play from Maywood Studios. I like the Shadow Play because I can, over the seasons, I can still get, you know, I can keep getting the same colors. When I started, like for instance, when I first made my Dahlia Magic, that quilt and kitted it, it was all done in Moda marbles. And after about 2 years, they discontinued 4 of the colors. They've really cut down on the number of just Moda marbles that they produce. So then I was really in a bind because it's such a popular pattern and fabric kit. Has been all these years. And so what I did is I went up to Maywood Studios. I went up to the warehouse and took the quilt with me and matched the fabrics. And so we've been doing that for quite a while now. And I can still get all the colors. So I can still offer the same fabric kit because the colors are stunning, in my opinion. It must be in other people's opinions too, because yeah, Hobby Lobby, Joann, when Joann's was in business, most all of those fabrics, they're cheaper for one reason, because they're cheaply made. The dyes aren't as well. The fabric, the thread count isn't as high, and a higher thread count's going to give you better fabric. And I remember Joann's used to carry a lot of fabric that the prints I would see at a quilt store too, and it was the same brand. but if you look, they were made different places and the thread count was different. So that's why they could sell the fabric cheaper. So, okay, this is 1C, and I have my fabrics all cut. The other problem, the dyes that they use on the cheaper fabrics, hey, I'm a quilter, and before I had a shop, I had to buy just like everybody else, and less is better, money-wise. And but if you're going to spend all that time and making a quilt, you don't want to have the colors run or fade out on you just over time, not even from wear and tear. And it's really worth it. And I know fabric is expensive. There's just no getting around it. But better quality is really worth it. So anyway, off my little preaching wagon here. Okay, so for part 1C, we're going to do it the same way. We're going to start with fabric piece number 1, wrong side facing up. Set the foundation on top. You want your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want a 1/4 inch going into space number 2, and I'm just going to do a zip line of stitching here to hold it in place. Oh, you guys, my Hexie quilt is coming along. I'm so excited. The more I do, the more I love it. It looks like something my grandma would make, but it's not made in the way grandma made it. It's just, well, here, I'll show you. It's not all sewn together. This chunk is sewn together. This chunk is sewn together, but I got to do that seam. And then I have to put the, a little blurry there. I have to put the sashing strips in that last section up there and sew it all together so I can get this off the design wall, because I am ready to start putting this modern sampler up on the design wall. So when we come back next Tuesday, it will be on the design wall so we can work on finishing putting it together. Okay, fabric piece number 2, right sides together. And remember, when you're sewing on this side, you want to be able to read the printing, and you're looking through to the wrong side of your fabrics. And there's, for each block, for this fox and geese, there are 4 parts like this, and there's 2 like this. So, like I say, if you wanted to do all 4 of these, chain piece, super fast, and then do the other 2 like this. I hesitate to do that here because I'm trying to teach you the basics of how to do the block. Once you understand how the whole block goes together, then doing all that chain piecing and cutting, because like on this one, I could trim for piece number 3 and number 4 at the same time. I'm not going to do that today, just because I don't want to confuse the issue. Okay, and when you're doing angled pieces, I know I have students at workshops who get confused on how to set the fabric. I always say, right side facing up, set it like it's going to go. You know, this is how you know it's going to cover your spot when you set it like this. And then just turn it over so you have your right sides together. And then turn it over and stitch on that line. Sometimes it gets confusing on how to set the angled pieces. Oh, and I remember when I was doing paper piecing, and of course you never got cutting instructions. And I mean, a half square triangle is not difficult to figure out to cut, except sometimes you don't cut it quite big enough, or sometimes you overcompensate and you cut it way too big. Okay, now we're going to trim to get ready to add piece number 4. Add a 1/4. And turn it over so the right sides of your fabrics are facing up. We're going to take piece number 4, and it's going to go like that. So we're just going to flip it over. So all of our packages include cutting instructions, and I keep the cutting simple. It's squares, rectangles, triangles, half square triangles or whatever. And if it calls for something weird out of the norm, where a square or a rectangle would have a lot of wasted fabric, I put templates in. So now we're going to get ready to add piece number 5. Fold our foundation back. Put our add a 1/4 ruler on there. Okay. There, I have it hooked on. See, and then I just moved that up. That's how I worked for years before I knew they made a 12-inch. I live in the country and I'm not exposed to a lot. We don't have any, well, we do have one quilt shop. But a lot of this is self-taught. So, okay, we're going to put right sides together here for piece number 5. And just sew on that line. And now when I open this up, I want to check and make sure that the point right here is good. I didn't cut it off. It's good. Okay, if it wasn't, this is when you'd want to go back and take some stitching out and either stitch down closer to the point or stitch up. Usually it won't match if you've run off the lines here, and it just takes a very minute, I mean just a tiny fraction to be off the line that it might mess up your point, but I'm quite happy with that one. So we'll open this up and press it nice and flat. And then I'm gonna tack this I'm gonna run a little bit of stitching out here to hold this, because see, this whole thing here is not attached. like I said, you don't have to do this, but it certainly doesn't hurt, and it only takes a second to do it. And it will probably save some unstitching later, because it would be real easy for the fabric and the foundation to not be exactly in place, and that could throw your block off a little bit. Okay, now we're going to trim around. Let me get my ruler over here. Trim around the edge 1/4 inch from the solid line. And then we'll put half of the block together. A good place to buy fabric too, I know you were asking about it, is Hancock's of Paducah, because it's all name brand fabrics. I love when I go stop there when we're traveling and we can stop there. You can, they have it all stacked or out there on the floor by manufacturer. So you can go see everything they have of Moda, everything they have of Timeless Treasures, all that. And their prices are good. Okay, we have part 1B, part 1A. So A and B get sewn together first. They're going to go like that. So we'll just flip that over, and our seams here should just butt up to each other. So we're just going to sew on that line. And I go down a little ways and make sure I have my seams butted up. Just like that. And then my ends down here match. Slouching over. I think that's pretty good. And I do press my seams open. It keeps from having too much bulk. Oh yeah. Okay, now A is on top. Then this is A, this is B. And I got to remember how to put, I think it goes like that. Let's see. I've got one done there. Yeah, it goes just like that. And there's nothing to match except your ends. And I do sew with the AB part on top because you got that seam there. That way you can keep it flat as you stitch over it. Match this bottom corner, make sure my edges are matched. Very nice. Awesome. Okay, now get that pressed. that one. And now we're going to make the other half exactly the same. So again, I have all my pieces stacked in numerical order so I don't have to think which one goes where. And you know what I did when I cut these? I don't know if I have it here. No, it's all. But I laid them out on the foundation, all the pieces the way they go, made sure I had everything correct. And then I just picked them up in order. I had them laid out on one of the foundations. I hadn't cut it apart yet. And you can do this one. You can make it in two halves. The pieces, there's this where I cut it. I don't know if you can see where I cut it. Right here, there's a little line right here at the bottom of the foundation. That would be your fold line if you kept all three parts in order. So you could do it the half section of the block. Okay, we're gonna, most people find it's just easier if you want to cut it all apart and do the individual parts. Whatever works for you. Oh, now Hancock Fabrics is different from Hancock's of Paducah. Hancock's of Paducah is an independently owned fabric store. They're located in Paducah, Kentucky, and they do mail order. That's a huge, they have a huge store, but they have a huge mail order business. So, you can order from there. And I think there's shipping charges. I always we make enough trips across country that we usually manage to stop in once or twice a year. I remember I think Hancock, the Hancock Fabric Company, I think they went out of business. I know we used to have one in San Jose. And they were an everything kind of fabric place, kind of like Joann's was. Only I think Hancock's had even more apparel fabrics. And you had to be careful there too. So they had some good fabrics and they had some cheap fabrics. It would depend on what you were making. Okay, getting ready to add piece number 3. This is a pretty quick block actually, and it's, it looks complicated when you put the whole block together, but you can see it's really pretty simple. Turn that over, put fabric piece. I don't know how this thing, turn that over. And it's these, when you do the individual parts like this, when you cut them apart, it's a lot easier to hold the fabrics in place to get them to the sewing machine. Don't have to pin necessarily. Let's see if yeah. Okay, set the stitches. Open it up and press it. That's step number 2. And now we're going to trim around the outside edge. And if you want, you can just make all the parts and then come and trim. I kind of like to do it as I go. That way, when I get the last one done, they're ready to sew together. And I've not been real good about making all my little blocks the way I suggested. Make 4 or 5 of these of the 8-inch blocks for your sampler, and then take a break from them and make your little blocks for the middle border, because it gets real boring, and I am afraid I haven't kept up with what I suggest you do. I've been a little more been trying to get the hexy one done and off the design wall. And I did part B before I did part A, doesn't matter. Set this with the wrong side facing up. Make sure you can read the printing on the foundation and set it on top of the wrong side of your fabric. So I've got all the hexies that I've made so far. They are all up there on the wall, mostly all sewn together. And you know, I haven't been hand appliquing them. I've been doing it here on the machine with the, what's the clear thread, the clear poly monofilament thread. And I've got my little, it's a stitch that goes 1, 2, 3, 4 on just the background, and then a teeny zigzag one time in to catch the fabric. And I have done it so much now that I've got that little tiny zigzag to just go over a couple of threads so it barely catches. I did learn to use in my bobbin to use a thread that matches the background fabric of the block, and that way you don't even see the stitching. That's why I say it's not the way Grandma would have made her hexie quilt. I did start off hand doing, well, I machine pieced the hexies themselves, but then I hand appliqued them on. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to have this done in time for the shows. So I went to doing it, appliquing it on the machine. I have my little routine at night while Bob and I watch TV. I sit in the living room I have a little table, and I have my little featherweight there. And I'll make I make a minimum of 4 hexies. And then I press them. And then I turn the edges under, and I used to hand baste those. And then I found the 505 glue sticks, so I can turn them under and press as I go. And then they're all ready to applique on the background. So when I come down to the shop in the morning, I bring my finished blocks and get them appliqued on, and it's going really, really pretty fast. I'm so excited because it will be done in not too long. So I was trying to think of what I wanted to do. I'm hoping we can finish this up next Tuesday. Remember, I won't be here Saturday. I'm teaching a workshop up in the Bay Area. We're going to be teaching the Migrating Lone Star pattern. And it's a big class, so I know I won't have time to come on and do anything of substance. So I may take some pictures and post a short little video just to show you how everybody's doing and to prove to you that I really do go and teach. If you belong to a guild and want me to come and do a lecture in a trunk show and stay over to do a workshop, I love doing that. I love meeting all these wonderful people, and I'm always so impressed with what different things the guilds do. It's just it's inspiring. Okay, so there's A and B are done. Match the other one like that. Let's just sew it together while we're sitting here. And the way the center seams nest, I don't even pin when I do this one. Just make sure that that's... Hi. Let's see if I hit it. See, now that's one of those I debate on. I think it's pretty good, though. I think when I get it ironed, it'll be fine. If I can get my fingers in there and get that open. I didn't know. Oh, yeah, that looks fine. I didn't know if I was even going to be able to sew this morning. I tell you, so far this morning, I have spilled a cup of coffee. I spilled my protein shake this morning. I was thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to sew? Am I going to break something? Okay, part C. Piece number 1. Wrong side facing out. Foundation on top. Just want to tack that together. Oh, and we got the roof on the hothouse yesterday. And the floors are all cleaned up and ready to get coated with waterproofing stuff so I can keep it clean. Okay, and then remember I said if you just put fabric piece number 2 right over top of fabric piece number 1, you'll know you got it centered just fine. Turn it over and stitch on this line. I don't back stitch. The foundation, I don't know what it is, but the foundation does help it all hold together better. It does take pressure off of your fabric at the seams. I know that, which is why it doesn't bother me to press my seams open. There are times I don't, but if it's a seam that doesn't have cross seams where the bulk adds up, I don't necessarily press the seams open. And if you know me, I hate threads hanging out all over. Okay, so number 3 is here. And if you want to speed this up, this particular block you can, because number 4 does not attach to any part of number 3, so you can trim both at the same time. So number 3 goes here. And again, if you are in doubt of how to set it here, just put it where it's going to go and then flip it over. For the double wedding ring, I just, a 9-inch square will yield, actually it'll yield both part E's, the outside part, and the melon part. 1 melon part and 2, I think the melon is a C, and D and E are the outside parts, if I remember correctly. I usually cut about a 9.5-inch square. And we've already cut for piece number 4. This dog ear will get cut off when we do the, put it like that. Whatever I was saying. I don't remember. And we'll get ready to add piece number 5. When I'm putting this big piece on, I just kind of make sure that I got about the same amount. Fumble fingers, see? That must be why I spilled my drinks this morning. Just make sure that you have about the same amount of fabric going past the outside lines. And then we're going to stitch this long seam. Set those stitches. Oh, perfect point. Like I say, if you open this up and this point didn't please you, this is when you want to fix it, and it's an easy fix. Open this back up and take the stitching out on the fabric side, not the foundation side. Foundation, if you did it on the foundation side, I'd be afraid of getting a hole in the foundation. Your foundation is pretty much self-healing, so you won't be able to tell that you stitched on it if you take your stitches out on the fabric side. Okay, let me run a little bit of stitching down here. And when you do this, to hold the foundation to the fabric, don't let it get distorted. You know, like don't let it wrinkle up. Make sure it stays nice and flat. It's usually why I give it a real quick press on both sides. It seems that when you press it, and I don't know if it's just when you use steam or any time, it makes enough static electricity to make it hold together pretty well. It is not fusible. I'm not crazy about fusibles in my quilts, which is why people are surprised I will use the glue sticks. But I'll tell you, there's a difference in glue sticks. You got to make sure you get one that will dissipate when you steam iron it. I know I use the 505 spray. It's temporary basting spray. And I use that on my hexies to cut them out. And if they sit for a long period of time, the foundation sticks to the fabric from static electricity, but the glue dissipates. So, and you can't tell you used it. It doesn't make the fabric sticky. It doesn't stiffen it or anything. It does slightly when you first use it, but that's what you want. So I have really become a fan of the 505 spray or stick. Okay, now we're going to put this together exactly like the first half that we did. So this is my first half, so we're going to do it just like that. So fold this down and sew these two halves. I guess technically they're quarters of the block. Whatever, we're going to sew these two pieces together to make half of a block. Make sure my edges are even. Keep that flat because there is a point there. Here we go. Press this seam open. If I could get my fingers in there. There we go. Okay, now, see these are exactly the same. We're just going to flip this around so it goes like that. So we will sew these two together. Now I do like to pin this because the seams, you could press the seams all this way, you know, this way and that way so they nested here in the middle. But down here at the bottom, bunch just the one layer. That's a lot of thicknesses there. So it's not that big a deal to match a seam. Just like that. And I put, whoops. And then the rest. I don't pin the rest. You certainly may if it makes you more comfortable, or clip it. I just kind of make sure as I'm stitching that I've got everything lined up. My edges together. Pull the pin out, line this half up. make sure your edges are even because you do have a point on the underneath section. Now we'll see how we did. Oh, that looks good to me. Points are good. That's a good block. We're done. Get this center piece, center seam pressed open. None of the blocks in this pattern really take too long. So for a large quilt, it goes pretty fast. I love that. Okay, let's put that in the done stack over there. And the two blocks that are left, one is a pineapple block, which we've done before. So I want to get to the New York Beauty because that's the one that so many people fear doing. I've got my fabrics somewhat cut out. This, you have the arc. There's 13 pieces to that. I have them cut. I have my back, the points. The points are the light color. The background part is the darker color. And I'm just making this one a 2-color block. I don't usually do that, but I thought it's kind of cool. So the inner part, the lower part of the arc will go here. So this fabric, the points are going to be the same as this fabric. And then this is the outer part, so the background will be that fabric. So you won't notice the circular seams. It'll just look like a starburst. So first thing I do is I stitch this down, or this is a great time to use a spray-based. That will work. But I like to get these two pieces ready to go. And then just work our way around the curved part without distorting the fabric or the foundation. If you have to stop and kind of make sure it all stays flat. That's why using a spray-based this is a good place for that. And then down this side. So you need, this is a part B, you need one of these. The arc is called part A. The pieced part. So we'll just set that aside for a moment. And usually if you hit, whoops, I see a big old thread under there. If you just barely hit this with the iron, like I say, it makes it kind of have static electricity. I want to do the curved edge first. We're just going to stitch this down. And again, you could just use a spray-based. Just want to keep it flat. And I think think I might have enough bobbin thread. And like I say, make sure this is all nice and flat. Okie dokie. Now I trim this. Nice and flat. So we'll grab our trim all the straight edges with the ruler. And then take my scissors and I trim on the dotted line on the inside curve. And if you're real good with your rotary cutter, you can do this with the rotary cutter, but you do want to cut right on the line. That way your edges with the arc part with part A will match. And then I go back and I notch. At these notches, I just clip. Okay, so part C is ready. And then I'm going to take part B and I'm going to trim the two straight edges with the ruler. And we'll trim this one right on the dotted line. Technically it's not a dotted line, it's a dash line or a broken line. Old habits die hard. Call it a dotted line. Well, you know, on this one, I didn't have to pick out all the colors. It was a bundle, a pre-packaged bundle, so it all went together, and I didn't have to think. But I did love the fabric. So, okay, so part B and C are ready to go for when we get part A done. So like I say, this one I don't stack them in numerical order because they're slightly different sizes. They're both 4.5 inches. The spike part is 2 inches and the background part's 2.5. So I just know which one to grab. So piece number 1, wrong side facing up. And this one, we started in the middle. I don't know why. I have no idea why I did that. And I'm looking at this copyright date. This was one of the very first ones I did, 2010. That's 16 years ago. That was before we even really opened the business. That was when I was designing blocks and quilts like crazy. Okay, so this is space 1 here, this triangle. This is space 2. It's a spiky one. I'm going to put a pin over here to hold it in place. I want my 1/4 inch to go past the line. And it's just a guesstimate of a 1/4 inch. But after a while, you get pretty good at eyeballing what a 1/4 inch is. Going to take fabric piece number 2, put right sides together, and just center those. And then turn it over. This is another block that's small enough my hands can hang on to the fabric. Okay, now it's pretty important that you be pretty accurate on this. I like to put my needle down, make sure it's right there on the end of the line, and just stitch on down. And I have all 3 of the 3 blocks, New York Beauty blocks. I have them all cut out and ready to go. So by the time we come back on Tuesday, all my blocks should be made. And I got set those stitches, open it up and press it. Okay. Now, number 3, what we're going to do is we work 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then we come back and we work the other side. So, this is number 3. It's a background piece. This is where we're going to sew it on. And I would say this is probably the biggest waist that we have of all of our blocks. And it's not enough to bother me, so okay, so then we're going to take, fabric piece number 3. It's a background piece. Put right sides together. And this line goes all the way out to the broken line. So we'll start out there. And this is one of those blocks that the pressing is super, super important, because you have it coming together to fine points. And you really want to make sure that your fabrics are pressed super flat, because you could get, okay, so my tension, oh, that helped. Okay. Set those stitches so you can get the flattest seam possible. That's pretty darn flat. It's not going to open up anymore, so you know it's good. Okay. Number 4 is a spike. The light one, that's a little narrower. Right sides together. And that one starts down, that line starts at the solid curved line. But down here at the bottom, it goes all the way out to the broken line. Okay, that's number 4. Number 5 is here. Background. Now, once you get familiar with doing this block, after the first 3 or 4 pieces, or actually after the first 2 pieces, if you wanted to, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to confuse you, but I could trim for piece number 6 and for piece number 8 at the same trip to the cutting mat, especially if you have to get up between stitching and you have to get up to go to a cutting mat. I would recommend doing that once you get familiar with how to do this. Saves time. I would cut both pieces in preparation for adding each piece. That might be why I did this starting in the middle. I don't remember. That's been a long time ago. Okay, spiky piece. But if you're making the one of our New York Beauty bed-size quilts, all that stuff speeds it up just enough to make it not quite so take quite so long. And generally this end piece, the background piece, it's only really half of a piece. If you're short on fabric when you're cutting for this block, you can use, I think I had plenty, so I cut them all the same size. But I'll show you after I add this. Turn it over, sew down that line. Yeah, this really is, are you talking about this one? Because this one really is so simple. And I have to admit, when I designed this in 2010, I had never made a New York Beauty block before. Okay, now if you're short on fabric, you can trim a 1/4 inch from the solid line and then use the other half of this for down here in piece 13. I have plenty of fabric, so I just cut, it's 6 spikes and 7 background or 8 background pieces. 7 if you're going to split the last one, 8 if you're going to just do all of them. Because I think I had the fabric stacked 4 layers deep. Oh, you know what? I won it. What did we call that? Bobbin roulette? And this is my last one. I can never remember which way to put it in. it goes like this and like that. See, I think I'm missing something here. And on my other machines, you put it in that first notch and you bring it around and you can feel it click into another one. But I don't feel that on this one, so I'm not sure if I'm doing it right or not. And I think that's why I'm having so much trouble with my tension. Although it looks pretty good now. Once I changed my bobbin thread, okay. And if you sew on the lines, you'll get these perfect spiky points, so. Oh, I know. I started to say that when we're done with this next week, I think we're going to do a heart in the cabin quilt. I've made it a little bit bigger to make it a nice size throw quilt. The one we currently have, that pattern, is kind of a smaller. It's more for a kid's throw than makes a beautiful baby blanket or a kid's throw quilt. But I wanted to make it larger. So we're going to work on that. I have some beautiful fabrics for that in a kit. So I think, and we won't dwell on it for a long time because it's just one block. It's the same block repeated throughout the quilt, and then the braid border, so I can go over that again. And mainly just how to put it together. It'll be a real quick little project. Although making the whole quilt will take a bit longer, but you don't need to watch me make 24 or however many blocks are in it. The same block. And hopefully by then, I'm hoping I can have my next block of the month ready. And we can share that and show you everything. So if you sign up for Block of the Month, the videos will be on there. And you can just sew up a storm. Bobbin chicken, yeah, and I won, haha. Almost done with this one. Last spike piece. These don't take too long to make, and they're so impressive. New York Beauties, any of these spiky blocks. It's a beautiful day here. I have my door open. I guess that's just one piece. No, it's two. It's two. I cut an extra one. Okay. Press this one open, and I am going to just stitch down the two end pieces because they're not hooked, and I want them to be. But all the rest have seams frequent enough to hold it all together. And down here at the other end, make sure it's nice and flat so you don't distort it. And then we're going to trim it up. Get rid of that. We're done with the outer quarter. I trim off the two straight in pieces. Get that lined up. And then grab the scissors. I'm done with that. And cut these two curved sections, or lines. And again, if you're confident with your rotary cutter, you can do it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Oh, birds. Sounds like blue jays. Blue jays, magpies, and woodpeckers around here vying for attention. Okay, so that's all trimmed. And then again on the inside curve, we're going to clip at the marks. It's only the inside curves that you need to clip. Okay, so this is how it's going to go. Just like that. So I'm going to do the inside one first because this is my least, this tight one is my least favorite. And it's still simple. I'm going to sew with this side facing up because I want to make sure I don't cut off the points. So I put a pin in at the center mark, and I'm really sorry my hands are kind of flipping all over the place. Okay, and this is where we want to match the edges of our fabric, keep our pin straight across, and bring another pin in. Keeping that pin straight, I pinned it. Now, this is the part everybody gets worried about. You're just gonna roll these two pieces together. See, I'm rolling this down to match the edge of the fabric underneath. And you do need to pin on this one. Okay, see, and I'm not stretching anything, but that's why we have those little clips. It allows you to kind of open it up, and you don't want to go too far. And then want to make sure your ends match. And here again, my hands today are just not cooperating. Okay, I didn't have to stretch anything, and I have it all. There's no puckers on the underneath side. Now we're going to come back to the middle, and we're just going to do the same thing out to the other side. Just keep working our way around. And if you trim them both correctly, everything should match up just fine. Before I put that, I make sure that my ends are going to meet squarely. And it's kind of hard to pin through 4 layers of fabric compared to 2. So see, that's just perfect. What did we do? The double wedding ring, same way. This is a little bit tighter than the double wedding ring. So now we're going to go down here to this end, and we're going to stitch on the line. Bring my foot pedal back. And when you do it, I usually put my hand between the 2 layers of fabric, or the 2 parts, and you want to kind of help feed the fullness through. But you see, as I'm sewing, it's like I'm sewing on a straight line. So as we go, there's that point. You're just working it around. I kind of pull on this side, on the left side, just a little bit, and that brings that fullness around, and it makes the seam line seem to be straight. that bottom one around a little bit. Oops. So there we have it. And there's no puckers on this side. So now we're just going to take it over. And I like to just sort of put the nose of my iron on the seam and press it, and then just press it flat. So there you have your inside one, and all your points are perfect. That was the hard one. This one's much easier. And we've already clipped our points, or our I'm going to match it like this, but I do so again from the part A side. So there I've matched my center dots on both sides. I'm going to keep that pin straight there. There's not a lot of layers of fabric. I mean, it's just the 2 layers of fabric here at the middle, so you probably could rock that one. And then we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to just roll our edges together. This is a much, being it's larger, it's a softer curve. There we go. And you just, feel on the back side, make sure you're not getting any puckers. And before I get to the end, I want to come down, I want to go to the end and match both directions. And then we'll come back and make sure this all gets eased in just right. Lays flat and the edges match. Oops, got that. That's just a clip. Okay, one more pin. And then we'll come down and start from the center and work out to the next edge. Oh. You don't need to stretch anything or pull anything. It should just roll together. And again, I'm going to go out to the end. Make sure my ends are matched. That way when I open it up, it will be square. And then come back. And if you have any extra fullness, you should be able to just ease it in. You might have to put an extra pin in. But look at that. Just want to make sure that at the seam line, now because this side's bigger, it does does go out. There's extra fullness. So you just want to make sure you don't get a pucker there. Okay. And now we'll come back over here and we'll get started. And now I put my hand between the 2 layers because The bottom one is the fuller part. See, and there's a lot of, you're going to work that fullness through as you go. It helps to keep from getting any puckers. If there's a pucker, you'll feel it. But you're just smoothing it out as you go. Super simple. Just to learn that feeling. Making sure you just work that through. You'll pick up on it the first block you do. You'll understand what I'm talking about. I wish I could get my camera down there at the same time to show you. I'm just working this fullness through as I go. You don't have to push real hard or anything. Your fingers are just smoothing it out as you go. And then we'll feed that fullness through so this will stay straight. And there we are. And the first thing I always do after I clip my threads is to flip it over and make sure there's no puckers in this. That looks great. So then again, when I go to iron, I just kind of, it's hard to set the stitches on the other side, so this kind of does that. And then give it a good press all the way around. And there you have it. Get rid of some of this thread. There's your block. Lays nice and flat. No puckers. Good points. So, there's our New York Beauty block. I don't think I'm going to do the pineapple block. I don't have the pieces cut for it. Let me see where my cutting instructions are. Pineapple block. Everything's cut. Strips are cut 1 1/4 inches in the varied lengths. The first one, and I haven't picked out, but I have plenty. There is plenty of fabric. And once I cut for these, I will, all the rest of the fabric will be usable in the little small, the square and a square, the middle border blocks. So what I'll do is, once I cut for the pineapple block, I've already got my other 2 New York Beauty blocks cut. Then all the rest of the fabric I will layer up and do, because I'm going to need 64 minus what the few I have cut of the middle block. And I'll cut like crazy, and I will be chain piecing those together to get that inner blocks all done, the inner border blocks. So between now and Tuesday, the sashing strips are cut by width of fabric. I'll go back and I'll cut all the sashing pieces, all the cornerstones. I'll have it all ready to go, and we will put this thing together on Tuesday. Remember, I won't be here on Saturday, And I'll be back with you Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific time. And we will get this whole quilt put together. And I'm really, really anxious. So we'll see you then. I hope you all have a great weekend, great rest of your week, and then a wonderful weekend. I hope you're sewing on something really fun. And yeah, I guess that's about it. We will see you next Tuesday. Yay! Take care. Thank you.